Hello, welcome to episode 8 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. If you haven't seen this series before, basically it's my attempt to work my way through that book right there, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. Now I'm working off the 2012 edition, which means it goes up to 2011. It starts in 1902, it's over 100 years of films, and I started this series 2 years ago. Yeah, this is the 8th video in 2 years. Not really doing too well, am I? Well, I've actually kind of went back and looked at the book and gone to the checklist, and I've now watched 179 films in the book. So I have been working at it, but it's just making the videos. And so I'm going to start getting back on that now, and this one's going to be a tough one because it is absolutely roasting, boiling hot. I mean, it just refuses to get cool at all here in Norway. It is just, it's like living on the surface of the sun. I absolutely hate it. Anyway. So, this time we're going to be talking about Broken Blossoms, or The Yellow Man and the Girl, from 1919. We're going all the way back to almost 100 years ago, the dawn of cinema. Well, not even the dawn of cinema, that would be like the 1800s, but, you know, the baby steps of cinema. And this is a film directed by D.W. Griffith, who's considered by many as one of the forefathers of cinema in general, kind of one of the first pioneers of kind of the blockbuster film in terms of films like Birth of a Nation, Intolerance from 1915, 1916 respectively. Broken Blossoms for him was a much quieter kind of film, even though it had a bigger budget than films like Intolerance apparently, which sounds crazy to me because you see the scope of Intolerance and then you see the lack of scope in Broken Blossoms in terms of just the sets and the surroundings is quite astonishing. But I do believe it was filmed all on set. I may be wrong about that, but definitely a lot of attention was put into the production design of this film, and it looks fantastic. The feel of it is great. The London fog and just the kind of dingy, murky, kind of mysterious surroundings that the main characters find themselves in. And the story is about, as the alternate title, the Yellow Man and the Girl kind of hints at, the main character is a Chinese man called Cheng. Beginning of the film, he decides to move from China to London to preach the word of Buddha and to kind of spread the word of peace, basically. A very naive kind of mission, but nonetheless he goes out, ready to kind of do, his master's proud kind of thing. And then we flash forward a few years after he's been in London and he's merely a shopkeeper. He succumbed to depression, drugs, he frequents opium dens, he's not really a very happy person, and his mission has proved to be pretty unsuccessful. And then we see another character in London called Lucy, and she's a young teenage girl, 15 years old, and her father, Battling Burrows, is a drunken prize fighter, and he's an abusive father, and he doesn't treat her too well. And Lucy is played by Lillian Gish, who is considered one of the great actresses of all time. She started so young, and I mean, I'm not sure when she made her debut, but she was definitely in films a lot earlier than Broken Blossoms, so throughout the 1910s, and I believe her last film was in the 80s or the 70s, so she had an unbelievable career that just spanned so many decades, and I have never seen her in anything else. Maybe I have and I haven't noticed it, but this is my first kind of Lillian Gish film, and I don't know what to say about this film, because this is where I'm going to get into my real thoughts about it. Now I've set it up. Well, basically, Lucy, she has an abusive father, and he goes out and he's, boxing and drinking and all that kind of stuff. He has a manager who's trying to tone down his drinking antics, and he's like, "What do you expect me to do? Just sit around and do nothing, And so Lucy, she kind of is very withdrawn, kind of just a withering type, she's very oppressed by her father, and she goes out and does the shopping for him. She's very meek and doesn't talk to anyone. And Cheng has seen her outside his shop window, and he's fallen in love with her. And then basically the story is about their love, basically. And this is where my problem with the film starts. Now, Lillian Gish was in her early 20s when the film was made, as was the American actor who played the Chinese man in the film. Oh yeah. It's an American actor playing Cheng. Though there are Chinese actors in the film, he is American and basically kind of squints and has some kind of fake eyebrows and stuff. And he was in his early 20s as well. So you have two actors in the early 20s doing a love story on film. Nothing wrong with that. But the Chinese man is surely meant to be in his early 20s, or at least his late teens, and he is kind of lusting over this 15-year-old girl. I didn't quite get that, though apparently it's based on a story where Lucy was even younger, and so, you know, I guess they tried to make it even, you know, to basically do what I'm saying, is to make it not so bad by having her be older, but I don't think they made her older enough. I mean, I don't know whether back then the ages of consent were different, I don't know, but for me, seeing a 15-year-old character being pursued by a seemingly older man was quite on the creepy side. Even though I said lusting after her earlier, he's not really lusting after her, and it's the filmmaker goes to great lengths to tell the audience that his love for Lucy is very pure and innocent. There's a moment where she's lying down and he's moving towards her, and it was a really creepy moment for me because he's kind of like this, and he's looking at her like Gollum's looking at the One Ring, and he's slowly creeping forward, and she's like looking in fear, and then he grabs her kind of dress and he just gives it a kiss and then puts it back. It was so creepy. And I know they're trying to evoke this kind of sweetness, like, you know, I love you because, you know, I don't know, you're beautiful. And again, that comes back to like me thinking it's kind of weird that he just loves her because he thinks she's cute. I mean, he doesn't know her, you know, and she doesn't even have a personality because she's been so oppressed by her father. And I would say that the character of Lucy is very one-dimensional. She has nothing to do but be the victim in the film. There's nothing wrong with being a victim, obviously, but there wasn't much of a progression for Lucy's character, I found. And Lillian Gish, she was both great in this and not great for me. Everyone's praised her performance. I've read so many reviews. I've been trying to wrap my head around this film. Lillian Gish has been praised for this film, particularly the infamous closet scene, and people are saying, oh, she was incredible, I've never seen such raw terror, you know, displayed by an actress or an actor, and how raw and gritty her performance was. But for me, it was so over the top. You know, I read Roger Ebert's review, and he gave it like, you know, 4 stars out of 4, you know, amazing, masterpiece, she's brilliant. I just didn't get it. For me, the first half hour of the film I thought was phenomenal because it built up the story. It got me to a point where I was thinking, where is this going? I can't wait to see the outcome. You know, what's going to happen to Lucy? What's going to happen to Chang? There's a great scene where Lucy, you know, you see her talking to kind of some prostitutes to see if she can get out of her way of life by becoming a prostitute, and they basically tell her that this is a shit life, you shouldn't do it, and she thinks maybe I can marry my way out of this situation, and she hears from a wife who's like, don't get married. So Lillian is very trapped. Lucy's very trapped, and Lillian Gish, who portrays her, and she did a great job of portraying that and showing that kind of trappedness inside this person. And there's a great scene in the first 20-30 minutes where Battling Burrows has come back from a fight, and he's like, you know, he's berating Lucy and saying, oh, you know, blah, 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 whatever. And then he's like, geez, why don't you just smile? Smile for once, you know? And that kind of hit a raw nerve with me, because I don't really smile much, you know? My kind of natural resting face is quite a miserable one. And so the amount of times people have said to me in my life, why don't you just smile? And I felt like punching him in the face, you know? It really struck a raw nerve with me. And then she did something that predated Buster Keaton in Go West in the 20s, where she smiled by going like this. And I was like, oh, because in the Buster Keaton film, Go West, where he does that, of course Buster Keaton's famously, you know, stone-faced, never smiles in his films, and he's playing a poker game, and these guys, I don't think Go West is in the book, so I can talk about it. He's playing a poker game, and the guys are like, smile or something like that, and he goes, and it's a really funny scene. But in this one, which again predates that by quite a few years, Lillian Gish did it with such a look in her eye, or eyes I should say, where she did this, and it was kind of a funny moment, but her eyes looked devastated, and it really struck a nerve with me, and I almost teared up a bit. It was really heartbreaking to see this young girl go through such horrible treatment and to force a smile like that. And that kind of the kind of forced smile comes in throughout the rest of the film. But yeah, I thought this is really promising. But then the next 2 acts of the film, the next hour, she just, her displays of terror were like kind of oh, like that, and it's like, do I judge this on how the acting was back then? I mean, this is the infancy of cinema. Do I say that people saw that in 1919 and were blown away by the power of her performance? You know, people have said that she invented screen acting. The scene where she's locked in the closet and she's like this, and she's spinning around, and she's like an animal stuck, you know, and she's just this complete terror, you know, and people were saying that outside the studio, people thought something really bad was happening, you know, and D.W. Griffith, the director, was like, why didn't you tell me you were going to do that? That was, you know, ridiculous and like powerful and all this. And but for me, it just was so, it just disconnected me from it because it was so over the top. It was like panto theater, you know. I didn't I didn't connect with it. And then Cheng, who, you know, the very subtle, restrained performance by the man who played him, I forget his name offhand, and, you know, the very, again, meek kind of character, and it was nice seeing those two kind of meek characters come together and find love for each other. But for me, the love affair was rushed. You know, he kind of just took her in, put her in a bed, and just kind of like lorded over her, and she kind of was like, oh, someone, you know, is nice to me for the first time, and, you know, I'm in love with him too, maybe. I don't know. And then the climax of the film, you know, Cheng kind of finds something, and he's, again, overacting, like, and I just, the overacting to me just kind of sliced a section out of the film that could, not a section, but it just took away a lot of the promise for me, the overacting. I don't know, because I've seen films from the 20s where the acting is restrained and it is subtle all the way through, and there isn't the over-the-top stuff, and it still works. And I don't know, it's really hard to judge this one, it really, really is. But I mean, the sets look great, the atmosphere was great, you know, the performances were, you know, hit and miss in that regard, again, the over-the-top stuff. But the guy who played Battling Burrows was a lot of fun because he was the abusive kind of alcoholic father, but I kind of really enjoyed the scenes where he was boxing. Those were great scenes where he's having a fight and he just brought his character through the screen with his physicality, you know, just by the way he carried himself in the fight and the way he punched and the way he celebrated after a win and the crowd cheering him on. I love those scenes, they were fantastic. But I will say that as a whole, the Battling Burrows character was a bit, again, like panto theatre, over the top. He's kind of mugging at the camera and, oh, I'm gonna, you know, just a bit too much to be taken as seriously as the first act of the film set it up to be, I think. And then, you know, a major point in the film, someone gets shot, I won't say who, and they get shot quite a few times, and there is no mark on them whatsoever. There's no blood, there's no hole in the jacket. It is just, I just was reminded of like The Mask. Like just the way they were overselling the being shot, and then the fact that there was no hole. I mean, you could put a hole in a jacket, surely. I mean, surely the sensors weren't that bad back then. I don't know. So I have a lot to critique about the film. But there's a lot I liked about it, you know, and I like the setup, you know. Wasn't that thrilled with the payoff, but overall I think it is an important film because it actually portrays an interracial relationship, even though the Chinese character was played by an American. I think it's quite a progressive film for the time. Definitely kind of is a surprise to me, knowing that, you know, D.W. Griffith made Birth of a Nation, which kind of glorifies the Ku Klux Klan in you know, 1915 and so on. To have such a racist film, and then to have a film that is very kind of unracist, you know, and the way it plays with that, and it's a very depressing film as well, and I just don't feel that the payoff was worth it. You know, I was just left feeling a bit empty afterwards, and a bit, you know, dismayed that the great setup wasn't delivered on when the performances became too over the top. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how to judge this really based on like looking at it at the time or now, when we're almost 100 years past this film. 100 years, a century. It's hard for me to kind of quantify, do I just judge it based on how I see it now or how it was seen at the time? And I can't go back to then and see what it was like at the time. I can read about it and read what people said, but it's not the same. So I have to basically look at it for now the way I see it, and that is ruined a little bit by the over-the-top acting. I did like the writing and the intertitles. I thought the screenplay was terrific. It characterized a lot of the, you know, the characters and stuff in terms of the way that they spoke and things like that. So like accented kind of dialogue. The screenplay I thought was fantastic, and there's some kind of intertitles with kind of like colorful kind of backgrounds, not just black backgrounds and white text, and there was kind of like poetic lines basically, and some of it didn't hit, some of it did, and I liked the kind of poetic nature of the script and the writing. I enjoyed that a lot actually. So that was one thing that kept me going throughout the film, even though some of the performances were kind of grating on me a little bit. I still enjoyed where the script was going on screen, and also the film is color tinted as well, so again you just get great kind of feelings for the atmosphere in certain scenes. So Broken Blossoms, or The Yellow Man and the Girl, for me, is it a film you must see before you die? That's what I do at the end of every one of these videos. I'm going to say yes, because what I didn't like, you might. You know, you might be moved by Lillian Gish's performance. You might find her display of sheer terror to be something that touches you. And I'm not saying because I thought it was over the top that everyone else should. Different things work for different people. I definitely would recommend it to any kind of cinephile. And so I would say it is a film you must see before you die, because if you can kind of get into the performances and the over-the-top style of the performances don't bother you, then I think you come away with a great viewing experience. So that's my thoughts on Broken Blossoms from 1919. Thank you for watching. I hope to ramp up the reviews of the Epic Film Challenge 2, and I'll see you with the next one.